Hello denizens, welcome to Apple Good or Evil. In this episode, I will tell you why BlackBerry lost out to Apple's iPhone. Yes, you can't accuse me of not being on top of all the hot new tech trends. But this is a topic that I've been wanting to talk about for a long time because I love the idea behind business DNA, and ultimately, this was a battle of philosophies as much as technology, which is why I think the topic is still relevant. Business decisions based on Research in Motion's DNA, I think, killed off the BlackBerry phone business in what seemed like an instant. 1 minute, the most popular business phone in the world, the next, a footnote. In actual fact, the death was much slower, but that's for later. I want to discuss something I believe all business owners have to be careful of, and that is the thing that made you successful will be the thing that kills you. And if you suffer from the same kind of hubris that RIM's business leaders had, then that end will come even quicker. Now, I'm sure anyone who knows how to Google will quickly see that BlackBerry is still kicking, which provides another aphorism of mine. The only goal of business is to try to stay in fucking business. But a video on that brilliant observation I will have to leave for another time. The seeds of all businesses contain the DNA of their beginnings and often the owner's personality. It affects what they do, how they do it, for good or bad. It affects corporate culture. One could easily see Dell's transition from building PCs to order for friends, to phone orders, to build to order online. Unencumbered by bricks and mortar, it was Dell's natural path. It was in its DNA. Microsoft's origins included a business innovation which was totally new for the time, and it was to charge for personal computer software. The Homebrew Club at the time, a collection of geeks who espoused what we would now call an open source philosophy, were aghast at Bill Gates and Paul Allen for charging for their code. But that became Microsoft's raison d'etre. It brought them huge success, but also created a blind spot when the internet killed off Microsoft's MSN service that they had set up to compete against AOL and CompuServe's walled gardens. And just in time, too. Apple is one of only a few companies that have been able to seemingly change its spots, but I would argue that Apple at its core, get it, has always been a consumer technology company. That hasn't changed. Just look at the Barbie iMacs they just released. It was always a grudging business partner. I remember Jobs joyfully talking about employees of boring Fortune 500 companies bringing their own Macs to work because they hated working on PCs. I think there was even an ad to that effect back then. That's how Jobs wanted the iPhones to take over business, not through greasing IT departments, but by employees, and often through presidents and CEOs telling IT staff that they wanted to use their own iPhones and not the BlackBerries that were officially given to them. So what about Research in Motion? For those of you who know nothing about this plucky Canadian company, let me give you some background. Much like Hewlett-Packard, RIM was started by two engineers, Mike Lazaridis and Doug Freegan. Later, Lazaridis and Jim Balsillie would be co-CEOs. RIM became famous for their pagers and then their phones, which we lovingly dubbed crackberries. Now we're all used to watching people walking oblivious, faces in smartphones, bumping into people on sidewalks. But back then, seeing hedge fund managers in downtown Toronto obliviously crossing intersections, almost getting killed by turning cars, was still a novelty. People also loved the BBM messaging service. They were literally the business standard, primarily because of the security offering of their BlackBerry Enterprise server, which all companies had to use to run their mail through. A curious aspect about the thing that made you successful will be the thing that kills you, it also makes you think your features and benefits are more important than they might actually otherwise be. There is a famous story when Carly Fiorina was president of Hewlett-Packard. At a meeting, she stood on top of a printer and asked why they were making consumer inkjet printers so strong that she could stand on them. Wasn't that over-engineering unnecessary, and didn't it add cost to the printer? Of course, up to that point, no one at HP would think of not over-engineering anything. That was the engineering DNA of Bill and Dave. RIM started with pagers. They ran for a month or more without recharging. When the Curve and Bold phones came out, long battery life was central to their design philosophy. Battery life, technology limitations, and compact design meant super lean code. Also, let's not forget BlackBerry's famous security. This is what turned RIM's engineers on. It was the DNA Lazaridis imparted on the company. RIM engineers had to recite this poem in the morning before starting work. I will not let a phone go out that did not last a month about, filled with many securities, and marvel at the squeaky keys. No, not really, but maybe they did. Now, notwithstanding that Apple waited for technologies to become mature enough to pull off the iPhone, Apple asked one critical question that I'm guessing the gearheads at RIM wouldn't even dare ask. Does a smartphone have to last a month on a charge, or would people be okay with charging it nightly? That was the one simple revolutionary question Apple asked of its engineers. If that was true, then what kind of smartphone could they build? That hypothesis allowed for a much more powerful battery-sucking processor. It allowed Apple to squeeze in more RAM and a scaled-down version of Mac OS. It allowed for a big, color, capacitive screen. It allowed them to have real apps that felt like computer apps and not shitty Java phone apps. It allowed them, as Jim Lazaridis put it when he first saw Steve Jobs downloading music, videos, and maps onto a small glass object, words to the effect of, "Holy shit, they've put a computer in your pocket." Actually, he said, how did they do that? According to Jackie McNish and Sean Silcoff. Still, the first iPhone wasn't perceived as a threat to BlackBerry's core business because it wasn't secure. It had rapid battery drain and a virtual keyboard. Remember what I said about thinking your product had great features and benefits that you just took for granted? Well, it turned out most everyone didn't care as much about long battery life, not having a physical keyboard, or even security. When the iPhone came out in 2007, RIM was on a roll. And in 2008, they doubled their user base. But soon the wheels started to fall off the RIM. Get it? Okay. I won't go into the history of the Storm or the BlackBerry 10 phones. By 2010, Apple was selling more iPhones than RIM. Of course, by this time, Android was also stealing business, but this is not the Android good or evil show. They can get their own. The iPhone had the App Store that allowed third parties to expand the usefulness of the iPhone. Apple knew how to work with developers. It was in its DNA. RIM did not. RIM reincorporated as BlackBerry. John Chen took over and eventually got out of the phone business. QNX, one of BlackBerry's acquisitions, happens to be the software behind many of cars' infotainment systems. And so BlackBerry has charted a new, very successful course. Remember what I said about the key to staying in business? Congratulations, BlackBerry. What are you fixated on? that you think is fabulous, but your customers just think it's a nice to have? What are you doing to innovate? Is your present success your future blind spot? I'd like to hear from business owners who fell too much in love with their product or service and suffered the consequences. Stay tuned for the Frantics Blackberry sketch, which we did in 2005. It is very funny. Thank you for watching Apple Good or Evil. Till next time, denizens, be seeing you.
It's all go.
No, I definitely need to. Look, why don't you leave me a voice?
Gentlemen, have a seat. Gentlemen, let's get this meeting started.
Yes, it does include that.
We're going under a bridge.
We're going under a bridge.
And let's turn off all our cell phones, pagers, and Blackberries. Gentlemen, our backs are to the wall. The board of directors want to know what went wrong. They want an answer in a half an hour. The question is, what are we going to tell them?
Luther,
Yes, Carmine?
how long is this going to take?
Well, it can't take any longer than a half an hour.
Half an hour. I really ought to change my message if it's going to be that long.
Yeah, I gotta check.
Gentlemen, forget your pagers, cell phones, and Blackberries. Murray, what are you doing?
Nothing.
You're checking your email.
No, I'm checking voicemail. It'll only take a minute while you ream these two
We're
out.
keeping all communication devices off until we're done. Now, the main issue is cash flow. We're in desperate need of new financing.
Luther,
We've
look at
gone to
Murray.
our serv-
Oh, for God's sake, just give him back his BlackBerry.
We're supposed to be businessmen.
Yeah, modern businessmen. This is what businessmen do. We call on phones. We check for messages.
You're supposed to think.
No, we don't think, we respond.
And you don't even think about your response. You just type and send. You could type ugleg glug and it wouldn't matter because content isn't important, only speed.
Hi, how you doing? It's Murray Cohen here. Hey, listen, did you get that contract? Oh, don't just. Oh, where's my?
Okay, now he's hallucinating. Give him back his BlackBerry. This is serious.
Serious? I'll tell you what's serious. If we don't find a buyer by the end of the day, we're going under.
Hi, Murray Cohen. Sorry I can't take your call right now. Leave a message and have an awesome day. Oh, hi, Murray.
Okay, that's it. I am going to give Murray his BlackBerry back.
You do, and you're fired.
I am not going to stand by and see my friends suffer because you're a fascist.
Fascist? Is paying attention fascist?
120 emails and hey, 200 penis enlargement offers.
See? Nothing to say. No content.
Whoa. We got an offer from the Broad Letter Group, but we have to respond by 3 p.m. They're going to buy us out.
That's it. That's in 10 seconds. 6, 5.
Yes. Say yes.
Yeah, okay, hang on.
Hurry, Murray, hurry!
You want to be CC?
No, just send it!
What is sent?
With 1 second to spare.
Well, congratulations, Murray. You saved the company.
Ugleg glug. Well, that should do it.
Yeah, I think it's good. All right. Oh, goodness.
Hey, Murray.